Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty interesting show for you here today. Gonna talk some then versus now, right? Well, I guess not quite now, but then versus now. Dream Team versus Redeem Team, and this should be an interesting one. But before we get to that, you know what time it is. If you haven't already, please go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, make sure you open up your audio podcast platform, do a little search for the Format Podcast, and give us a subscribe right there. If you enjoy the content, give us a thumbs up, a like, a 5-star review, whatever it is. Make sure you share the show with other people you know who are sports fans or family or friends or enemies or whoever. Anybody you know that might want to hear a different take on the sports stories of the day. You know what happens when you do that? We rise in the algorithm. We find more sports fans. More sports fans find us. Now let's get right to it. All right. So if you saw the thumbnail, I'm sorry, and you're here on YouTube, or you just saw the title of the show, Dream Team versus Redeem Team. So you know what this is about. And what kind of got me thinking about this was recently Gilbert Arenas. This guy gives us tons of content, doesn't he? But recently he was talking about the argument Dream Team versus the Redeem Team. And so kind of this is something I had thought about some years ago, and it's interesting that it hasn't gone away. And I think what it kind of stems from is, of course, you have the LeBron James versus Michael Jordan argument that most people make, saying that, you know, whichever comes out on top of that is the GOAT, the greatest basketball player of all time. Now, I don't even think LeBron James is in that argument, but that's a different story. I think it's clearly Michael Jordan, hands down. But what happens, though, it's not just about LeBron James or Michael Jordan. Then you start getting into the argument of people saying, well, this era is the best era of basketball of all time, and the players are better now, and everything is better now, and it was so weak back then, and Michael Jordan supposedly took advantage of a watered-down league, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So then it comes to right along the kind of storyline there, that story arc is the 1992 men's Olympic basketball team for the United States, called the Dream Team. This was the first time we ever sent professional players to compete in international competition. And well, most people see that as the greatest basketball team ever assembled. When I say most, I guess probably within a certain age range. That most is probably changing now, and I'm sure a lot of people say the Redeem Team is better than them, and that's kind of what we're going to get into today. But let me just run this roster down for you for the 1992 Olympic team, aka the Dream Team. That's Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Clyde the Glide Drexler, Scottie Pippen, Chris Mullin, and Christian Laettner. Arguably the greatest team ever assembled, not just in basketball, but in the history of team sports. Like, you look at accomplishments, you look at greatness, you look at winning. I mean, it's insane, that lineup that we put forth in 1992. Now, we as the American basketball delegation completely demolished the rest of the world. Now, part of that was the greatness of that team. The other part was that the rest of the world hadn't necessarily caught up to us as yet in terms of basketball skills and basketball teams. So by the time the 2008 team rolled around, we were coming off of a bronze medal in 2004, which was just absolutely embarrassing in terms of international basketball competition, right? So then you have what's called the Redeem Team. And why are they called the Redeem Team? Because this team wanted to kind of take things back for the United States, and that roster was loaded as well. And the Redeem Team consisted of Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, who, as I mentioned, many people think is the greatest player of all time, Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, Darren Williams, Chris Bosh, Jason Kidd, Tayshaun Prince, Michael Redd, and Carlos Boozer. And Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, was the head coach. And the head coach of the Dream Team, of course, was Detroit Pistons head coach Chuck Daly. Now, these two teams are arguably the two best teams ever assembled, right? I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you the Redeem Team was not all-time great, but it gets interesting in terms of the matchup, right? So now, this is what I'll say. A lot of times we talk about who would win if the two teams played each other. So the first thing I'm going to say is this. That Dream Team had some older players on it in terms of, by then, a very broken down Larry Bird. Magic Johnson, I think, was 32 or 33 by that time. And back then, 32 or 33 wasn't like it is now, because the game was so much more physical back then. So you were really taking a pounding. So guys didn't play as long. So this is where it gets interesting, right? So what I want to do is just kind of expand this thought example for a minute and say, if we're gonna match up the dream team versus the redeem team, what I want is both teams in their primes, everybody healthy. I think that kind of makes it fair, right? Because Gilbert Arenas' argument was by then Magic was washed and Larry Bird was done because of the bad back, and I totally get it. But if you get everybody on this team healthy and in their prime, right? Scottie Pippen was just coming into his prime. This was 92. He was still pretty young. But like say if you had like a 1994 Scottie Pippen, like that. Patrick Ewing, this is what 1992, so he's 8 years into his career already. The knees are shot, but he's still an outstanding player. So I think this is a really interesting kind of thought experiment to put both of these teams healthy up against one another. So let's just go down the matchup, right? So I'm gonna say the first one is the one we would all love to see, and we kind of saw it in some All-Star games. We saw it in some regular season competition, but we didn't see both of these guys going against each other in their primes, and that's Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And I want to say it would almost be a wash, but I kind of got to give a slight advantage to Michael Jordan, and that's just because whenever it came to it, and Michael Jordan played against somebody who was elite, he made it a point to show that he was just better, right? Now, Kobe Bryant, of course, is better than Clyde Drexler, but going into the 92 finals, there was a legitimate question, Michael Jordan and Clyde Drexler, who's better, right? They were calling basically Clyde Drexler like, 1A, and Michael Jordan was very offended by that, which is why he totally went off in the Portland series. Not like he didn't go off in most of the final series he played, but that's why he totally went off, because he wanted to make sure that he let everybody know that Clyde Drexler was nowhere close to him. So Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, if you want to say it's a wash, I'm okay with that, but I slightly give Michael Jordan the edge, right? Now you look at these point guards, you have John Stockton and Magic Johnson, and on the other side, the point guards are Chris Paul and Darren Williams and Jason Kidd. And so realistically, I'm going to give the Redeem team the advantage there, because those are some really, really good point guards, and those guys are elite offensively. The only difference, the only thing I'll say about that is Magic at 6'9", he had the ability to see and pass over the top. So like trapping him doesn't do any good, and those small guards, he can just turn around and back them down if he has to. So he forces you to make an adjustment in your defense and maybe put a bigger, rangier defender on him, maybe a Tayshaun Prince or something like that. So this is where it gets interesting for me, right? So when you look at it, I think that the Redeem team clearly has the edge on the perimeter, right? Because as great as prime Larry Bird was, great as prime Magic Johnson was, as great as prime John Stockton were, Clyde Drexler, Chris Mullin, all of these guys were great, elite offensive players, but really Scottie Pippen was the only legitimate wing defender out of that bunch. So you definitely get an advantage by the Redeem team, because you have LeBron, you have D Wade, you have Carmelo, you got guys that can really, really attack. Michael Redd. So you have shooting, you have defense on the perimeter. So I give the advantage on the perimeter to the Redeem team. Didn't think I would admit that, right? But no, it's true. So you have guys that can really attack. But this, for me, is where the Dream Team has the complete advantage, and why I think they win this game. I just buried the lead there, didn't I? But yeah, I think they go ahead and they win this game. And the reason why is because even though your Stocktons, your Magics, and your Birds and your Chris Mullins can't stay with those Redeem Team wings and perimeter guys and guards, the problem is even when they get beat to the basket, you're going inside, and this is old school ball, right? You have Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, right? You have elite, and Karl Malone. You have elite interior defenders there, right? All-time guys in terms of rebounding, all-time guys in terms of shot blocking. You have elite interior defense, right? So it's either going to be you're going to have to pull up and try to shoot that mid-range, which is, we know, one of the most difficult shots in terms of percentage in the modern game, or in the game of basketball, period. Or you're going to try to attack the rim and get it sent back in your face by some of the best rim defenders of all time, that being Patrick Ewing and David Robinson, right? And, so I think that's where the game kind of turns, because, like I said, the Dream Team cannot guard the Redeem Team on the perimeter, but when the Redeem Team beats them and gets going to the rim, there's a lid on the rim with those guys there, right? So I think this is so awesome. This is something that I would absolutely love to see. I got the Dream Team winning, probably close, maybe within 10 points, like single digits, but I'm sure a lot of the younger fans and younger viewers would say the Redeem Team would win, but I think it's just unrealistic, because the Redeem Team in this case doesn't have enough shooters. Like, Chris Paul can shoot, but he's not a shooter. Darren Williams could shoot, but he's not a shooter. Kidd hadn't really become a shooter by then, not yet. Like right at the end of his career is where he really, started knocking them down. So I think they had like one real shooter to spread the floor, and that was Michael Redd, and he wasn't even a starter. So I think the problem is you don't have enough shooting on that team to force the dream team away from what they want to do defensively. And now they can funnel you inside. And even if you beat those guys because the dream team can't stay with you on the perimeter, they are putting a lid on the rim. So that's all there is to it. I got the dream team winning it. What I want to know from you is, what do you think of this matchup, dream team versus redeem team? Which one do you think is the best team of all time? Which one do you think wins? Leave your comments in the comment section. Can't wait to hear from you. Can't wait to respond to you. And I'll be back next episode. And I'm out. Peace.